Howdy folks, this is Shane. We're here to do a new rig and gear rundown. It's been a long time since I did one of these. It was back in the 2-Rock and Supersonic days when I did this, and it's been at least a year and a half since that. We're going to start with the guitars that I currently have, go over to the amps, and then have a look at what pedals I'm currently using and which ones I also mix and match depending on my mood. So let's get stuck into it. So let's start with this guitar. This is my brand new Mexican Stratocaster. It is all stock and man, I absolutely love it. It's Arctic white. It has the 5-way toggle switch, obviously, in betweens, hum cancelling, which is great. It has the steeliest sound of a Strat that I've been lucky enough to play. And I had to pick this up. It was just a beautiful sounding thing and it was super light. So this is brand new. I only got this a week ago from the time of shooting this video, and I've just been astounded by how well it sounds. Video demo went up today on YouTube of this, and it's getting some pretty positive remarks and comments, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought I would get another Strat, mostly for my YouTube videos, because I don't have a Strat. It's kind of a necessity when you're doing, you know, gear demos, product demos, all that kind of stuff, to have one. So I thought I would go ahead and grab another Strat, but I just didn't want to get any Strat. I'd recently sold mine and I wanted one that sounded good, actually sounded better than my old one at any stage of its modifications, and straight off the shelf this did everything that I wanted it to do. It's light. I've locked the tremolo down. I put 4 springs in the back. Yes, I leave the plastic on, I'm old school. And so 4 springs, tightened up the screws, everything else is as it is. I had to adjust the neck slightly. I put my 11s to 50s, I think it is, Diodario strings on here. Well, actually the Fender Bullets are on here at the moment because it was a free pack of strings, but generally I'll be using the Diodarios, and yeah, it's great. So stock Mexican Stratocaster, looks good, feels good to play, and that's the main thing. It's the first Strat I've had in a long time, since 2008 actually, that I'm like pretty blown away by it. So I say 2008, I'll put a video in the links, you can check out that guitar as well. Keeping with the Fender thing, up next is my 52 reissue Telecaster with Joe Barton pickups. These are hum cancelling pickups that sound fantastic. I recently did a new video of these pickups on Throwback Thursday on my YouTube channel, and yeah, this is an absolute beast. You can see that it looks relicked and worn. That's because it actually is relicked and worn, and relicked as in worn out relic. It's not custom shop relic. This has actually been used. All this sort of tarnish that you see on it, all that kind of stuff, it is just through use. There's no, you know, I didn't pay an extra $3 grand to have that done. You can see on the side here, it's got some black marks, and it's beat up, but in a loved way, which is great. I have modded this a little bit. I've changed this little plate. I put a diagonal one on here just for something to do, because I did a review of it on one of my YouTube videos, and I thought, yeah, I'll put that on. I've got different pots in here as well now. I'm using the Emerson Pro pots. So this has been modded, but it was only modded either out of necessity or through use. I did actually wear through the frets on this within 5 years. So last year I had stainless steel 6105 frets put on here, and they're awesome. They'll never wear out. It's an investment for me to do that. Saved me buying another guitar. I just didn't need another guitar. So yeah, it's a beautiful guitar. You've seen this a million times in my videos. I'm never selling this, and I'm never taking these pickups out. They're just great. One of the things I really love about this particular guitar over many others is the neck. The neck is quite large, which is what I love. It's not too big, but it's definitely larger, or quite a bit larger than a standard US Tele, which sort of suits my hands. I've got quite large hands for a small guy, so yeah, that's my Tele. Alright, up next is arguably my favorite guitar that I own. This is the Little Crow Corvino SD electric guitar. This is an Australian made guitar. It has a mini humbucker in the neck, Telecaster bridge pickup, It has the same size neck as my 52 reissue. It looks a little bit like a Nick Huber guitar. I don't know if you've seen them, but definitely look them up. In terms of shape, at least, it's similar. It's not the same, but it's similar. Three-way toggle switch here, and only 2 controls, which is awesome. I wish more guitars were like this. Volume control, tone control. That's it. These are Briley pickups. They're made in Australia as well. This thing's an absolute tone beast, and I sort of helped, I guess, to some extent with the concept of it, not the build part of it. I suck at that stuff, but yeah, just giving the company Little Crow Guitars feedback on how to improve things and where to take things and all that kind of stuff, and they've always been great. This is an absolute ripper of a guitar, and I recently posted some clips of this on my Facebook band page, Shane Diorio Band, and the tones were they were awesome. Like, everything I love about Tellies, this has that and more. It's just a great sounding guitar. I think tonally it may actually be better than my 52 reissue, but it's all subjective. Alright, up next is my Tokai 145L. This is a made in Japan guitar, and it is based on a vintage ES335, and it sounds like a vintage ES335. These pickups are something special and they sound amazing. I was lucky enough to try this against my old Gibson ES335 2008 model, and the 2008 Gibson sounded like there were wet towels over the pickups, sort of muffling the sound. It was dark, it was MIDI, had no chirp, no bite. This just wiped the floor, and I remember one of my friends was in the shop at the time, and he said it was a no-brainer. This just sounded better, and I absolutely agree. It's the best 335 I've ever owned, followed closely by an Epiphone Dot, which was an amazing guitar and actually sounded better than my Gibson. So this played great. I haven't had any issues with it other than I had to glue this guy back down to the little nut or screw here. That was the only problem I had with it. And yeah, it's got the vintage tuners on the back. It's got a nice, decent sized neck. It's not too fat, but it's not too thin. It's perfect, man. It's lightweight. It's got great tone. Absolutely sings. So I'm gonna have this until I finish playing, whenever that day may come. Up next is my Tokai SG guitar. This is based obviously on Gibson or Epiphone. This is a Chinese-made Tokai. Chinese Tokais are awesome. This is all stock. I did have MJS custom pickups in here, but I've taken them out. This is basically the guitar that I'll be using for pickup demos, should they arise. I don't know if I'm gonna keep this long-term or not, but for now, I've got a couple of other pickups on the way that I'm gonna do demos for, so this will be the platform for those videos. I don't know what to think of an SG. They're a bit of a weird beast. They're neck heavy, so they do tend to want to tilt this way. The one thing that gets me is E feels like it should be about here. So my frame of reference is kind of skewed because of the way the neck attaches to the body. It's just a very different guitar. That said, it sounds fantastic. There's no doubt about that. I really like the bridge pickup on this guitar, and there's not a lot of bad things to say about it. I mean, if you're an SG fan, this is definitely worth checking out. I know in the US, a lot of guys have problems finding Tokai stuff because of import problems or whatever, but this is legit Chinese Tokai or Tokai, however you want to say it. And yeah, it's been great. So it's basically my pickup demo or pedal demo guitar when I want to use some higher gain. It sounds great. One other thing I should make mention of as well is the neck is slightly longer, like it's wider this way than all of my other guitars. And it's kind of normal for SGs. I've found some SGs have different shaped necks. I don't know, it just feels a little different to play than all of my other guitars. But you know, that said, if you're an SG fan, you'll definitely dig it. Alright, up next, as you can tell by my smile, I love this guitar. This is one of the best Les Pauls I've ever played, and it's a Tokai made in China as well. This thing is a beast. It's heavy, it feels like a good quality instrument. The neck is a little thinner than I would like, but it's not as thin as my old Strat. It feels really great to play, and once I get going on this, I don't even think about the neck. It's comfortable. It really is comfortable to play. It's well balanced, everything about it feels good on, and it has two really great sounding stock pickups as well. I'm going to be putting the PAF pickups I spoke of before, the MJS custom pickups, into this probably this week, maybe today. I'll see how I go time-wise. So this thing is beautiful to look at. The finish is top notch. I've seen Gibson guitars that don't look as nice as this. This really is something special. If I was going to recommend either this or the SG, definitely check out these. These are, for their price, they just kill the Epis on the most part. Not all of them. There's a lot of great Epiphones as well. But from being a lefty and not having a huge range, when I picked this up, I was like, wow. I don't even want to play the Japanese Les Pauls now of the Tokai range, because this just ticked all the boxes, and it was relatively cheap as well. The one thing I have changed on this is the bridge here. I put a Tone Pros bridge in, and it's much better. I was having some problems with the old one buzzing. As soon as I made this mod of just changing that, I think I get more sustain as well as just a better sound. It's just the way that it is. It feels like it did something tonally to the guitar. I could be wrong, but it definitely has some impact on the sustain and the feel of the guitar. On the back, it has the vintage style tuners. It's got binding along the fretboard, binding around the guitar. Look at that finish. Seriously, that is just a thing of beauty, man. I love it. This is a guitar I'm going to keep for a very long time. I can't foresee myself selling this unless I do something extremely stupid that requires me to offload a lot of other guitars. But as it stands right now, I love this thing. I use it live all the time. And yeah, it's a great sounding guitar. I use this on my most recent album that's almost finished as well, because it just rocks. So yeah, Tokai, check him out. Alright, speaking of Les Pauls, here's another one. This is a Gibson Custom Shop VOS guitar. It's a 56 reissue with P90 pickups, and it's made the way it would have been made back in the day. If you can see, this is obviously a left-handed guitar. It's got the dots under the guitar as well, being that it's a right-handed neck. So it does have dots on the top. I don't know if they added them in or not, but it's a little relic as well. It has a rusty screw here and here, and you know, the finish is just something else. This guitar sings. In terms of single coil pickups, P90s are still my favorite. P90s just have a growl about them that most single coils don't have, whether it be a Tele or a Strat. Not to say they're bad, this just has a bit more output and it's a bit fatter sounding. So yeah, it's got a nice big neck. This is probably the best neck out of all of my guitars. It's nice and big, it feels great, it plays great. The frets feel awesome. It's nice and simple, like all Les Pauls. And this was the most money I'd ever spent on a guitar, and I was kind of like crapping my pants when I went to buy it. I was like, man, I gotta really either sell some stuff or, you know, make some money. And yeah, it all worked out. There's another guitar like this at the same shop. It's a 57 or 58 reissue VOS guitar as well, custom shop, and it's a thing of beauty as well. But yeah, I think one of these is enough. It's a lot of money. It's maybe too much money for an electric guitar for a guy like me who's not touring the country or anything like that. But you know, I'd always aspired to getting something like this, and when I did, I was blown away. I don't think I'll ever sell this thing. It plays great, it keeps tuned perfectly. What can I say? You've heard this. Yeah, it's just a great guitar. I should also point out, it smells so good. I don't know what it is about Gibson guitars. I know that sounds ridiculous, but every time I take this out of the case, I go, there's that smell, man. And it came in an awesome hard case as well, but yeah, whew, it smells good. All right, so there is one electric guitar missing, and that's my other little Crow guitar. It's the brown one with the 3 pickups. I'm having that modded again right now, so we'll see how that goes. I should get that back pretty soon. I'm gonna keep you in suspense about what I'm having done to that guitar. So yeah, it's off back to Little Crow. They're making some changes for me, and we'll see how it sounds when I get it back. I do also have an acoustic guitar. This is my acoustic guitar. This is an Epiphone. It's a jumbo body. It's nice and big. It probably doesn't sound as big as it should for its size, but once you actually use a pick, it sounds great. The pickup system in here is the eSonic 2 pickup system. So you can actually use this into either a PA system or an acoustic amplifier or an electric guitar amp with full distortion. This particular pickup here, I think it's the neck pickup, it basically allows you to turn that into an electric guitar if you need to. So you can switch between the pickup systems, use it acoustically so it sounds like it should, or you can just rock out with it if you need to do that. So you get the option of this kind of pickup system. Makes it great for just about any type of situation. If you're at a jam night or whatever and your only option is to plug into an electric guitar amp, you can go over to that pickup and just rock out and have no problems with feedback. So I gotta say, the neck on this is beautiful as well. It feels very, very much like my Tokai, which, as in my 335, it felt familiar to play. It's made in Indonesia. I was a little dubious or reluctant to check out the Indonesian-made guitars, but not because I have one. I was pleasantly surprised. I did a podcast on that a while back. And yeah, this thing looks beautiful. I always like the jumbo bodies. I don't use this live much at all. I only really bought it to do studio albums with, and that's what it's done. So it served its purpose, and it lives in the case. If it's late at night or whatever, I come out here in the lounge, and I tend to just strum this from time to time. I should take this to a gig at some point because I'd like to actually hear it in context. I have got a couple of acoustic-ish type songs that I could use it for, so yeah, it's just beautiful. It's got the nice gold tuners. The hardware down here is also gold. Well, hardware, there's like 2 bits here, but yeah, these are really nice guitars. So yeah, I didn't want to spend like $1,000 or $2,000 on an acoustic. I just couldn't justify it. I got this for like 500 Australian dollars, which is great here. You can't really buy anything for that price in terms of music gear. So keeps tuned well, sounds good. What can I say? I like it. All right, up next we've got my bass guitar. This is an Ibanez SR300. It has the active pickups, and I love this thing. It makes very lackluster bass amps sound amazing. You've got a high-end boost as well as a low-end boost as well as a fat boost. You can select the pickups, whichever one you want to use, and overall volume. For a guitarist like myself, playing bass is something I do at jam nights, and I also lay down bass on some of my songs as well if they need it. So I do use this in a recording capacity, and it sounds great. So I picked this up secondhand. It was like 140 bucks, which is a bargain. It does require a 9-volt battery in the back. I've had this for probably 2 years now, and I've never needed to change the battery. So I don't know how long they usually last for, but this thing is great, and the neck feels amazing. Being a guitar player, you don't want the neck to be super fat, so this feels very much like any of my guitars, but with the bigger strings. So it feels good to play. I can highly recommend these. One thing I do like about this guitar is the jack goes in this way. So it's made to go in from the top and through your strap, rather than plugged in through the bottom here. They've actually done something unique and have it go in this way, which is awesome. This thing feels great in the hand as well. It just, being a guitar player, I don't like massive necks, as in massive necks this way. So yeah, it definitely feels like a guitar neck, just with bigger strings. It's awesome, check them out. Alright, so over to my amplifier collection, and this is it. If you're expecting to see more amps, then I apologize, but this is all I've got. A little bit about the Blues Deluxe reissue at the front here. I had one of these years ago, and I loved it, and I sold it. I have no idea why. Listening back to the demos, I shake my head, and the live clips of the band playing. I have no idea why I sold it. I can't remember. It was a stupid decision. I think I might have moved over to the Vox amps, but in the end I came back to this because it's just a great amp. The stock speaker sucks in my opinion. If you can get a good sound out of it, go for it, but I couldn't. When I changed the speaker over in here to Swamp Thing speaker from Eminence, the amp came alive. It did that with my old Lowrance speaker as well that I put in there. The Lowrance is a great speaker. They're Australian made and they sound good. The Swamp Thing is louder and cleaner than any other speaker out there. It has more lows and more highs. You can dial the more lows out if you choose. It's got that ability. So a great amp to use for playing live, you know, jam nights, recording. I've used this for my demos, all kinds of stuff. It's just a great all-around 40 or 45 watt amp. And it's super loud. If I get this thing to 2.5 on the clean channel with my pedals, you know, that's as loud as I need to get it. It is really quite loud. For those wondering how heavy this is, it's not much lighter than this guy, the Super-Reverb behind it. So with the speaker that I've got in there, it does weigh quite a bit more. And like I said, it's nearly as heavy as this guy, just maybe not as bulky. So in terms of how it sounds, I love it. I stay away from the drive channel, nearly unless I have no other choice. I just use the clean channel on this amp, and it's the big round 6L6 valve tone that I really love. It's just got that extra punch. I basically, when I bought this, the second time round, I sold off my deluxe reverb, which had the V6 valves or tubes, and this just had that extra bit of muscle, so to speak. So I like the big thump of the 6L6 valves. I do miss that little amp, and I'll probably have a chat to my friend who bought it to see if he might be willing to part with it at some stage, maybe later this year, because yeah, deluxe reverbs, man, how can you go wrong? So yeah, they're a great amp. All right, so over to my favorite amp that I've ever purchased. It's this one, the Super-Reverb reissue amplifier. It's a 65 reissue. It has 4 10-inch Jensen speakers. This is all stock. You get this thing up to 4.5 to 5, and it's the best sound on the planet. I'm yet to hear an amp I like more than this. I've tested hand-wired copies of this, and I think this particular amp is something special. It sounds great. I even let Rick have a play through it at his gig recently, and it completely messed him up. He loved it. It's just an epic sound. It takes pedals extremely well. If you're playing in small rooms and you can't get the amp to at least 4.5, don't buy it. You have to have them cranked to get the most out of them. This amp just makes all of my guitars sound great. I can't get a bad sound out of this once I get it to the correct volume. So I basically live on the vibrato channel, and that's where it's at for me. This is loaded with the same 6L6 tubes as the Blues Deluxe, so it's nice and beefy sounding, lots of punch. The 10-inch speakers added a bit of a clarity kick as well, in my opinion. The reverb is just beautiful. I mean, that's why they call it the Super-Reverb. I think it's the best, one of the best reverbs I've ever heard. And the tremolo is not bad. I don't like the trem on these amps as much as I do the Vox tremolo, but it's nice. If you're into it, go for it. I use a pedal for all of my tremolo. It's just one less thing to hook up. So yeah, it's a great sounding amp, and like I said, it's heavy. The only reason I'd ever sell this is if I hurt my back again. I've done my back a few times, and yeah, that would be the only reason I would get rid of it. Is physically this is big and it's heavy and it's bulky, but you get it to the gig and there's no other sound like it. This kills my old 2-Rock. Absolutely kills it. I've had so many amplifiers over the years. In terms of Fender amps, this is the best amp I've played by Fender, and it's the best amp I've ever had. That's the end of the conversation. For me, it just is. It's awesome. Alright, hiding back here is also the Peavey Bandit 112. This is the mighty red stripe one. I found this second hand for under $200 in Australia. I think it was around 160, 170 bucks, somewhere around there. And yeah, I've had 3 of these, believe it or not. This is my 3rd, I think. So yeah, the red stripe ones sound great. There's something about this particular model. Now, there's a couple of different red stripe ones. There's made in US and made in China. I've never had a made in the US one. I've always had the made in China ones. They're reliable. They're pretty light for their size. Stock speaker's really good, but that said, I have changed out the speaker, and I put another Eminence speaker that I had floating around in here as well. I put the Eminence Texas Heat speaker in here, and it's great. The cleans on this are very comparable to my Blues Deluxe in many ways. The way it feels once you turn it up loud, it sounds and feels great. This speaker just adds a nice round sound to it without really emphasizing too much highs or lows. It's a very good speaker. I kind of compare it to, say, a Jensen CK12. It does all the right things, doesn't do anything too bad on the highs or lows. So yeah, unlike the Swamp Thing, which does have that emphasized low end, the Texas Heat is a little more neutral. So yeah, PV Bandit, what can be said about these things? They're great. I was running a jam night for a long time, and rather than having everyone plug into my great guitar stuff, I'd take this to the jam. And I gotta say, sometimes this would blow a lot of the amps there out of the water. Most of the times it would. And not just because I was using it, but if someone had a really nice amp and then they were rushed up on a second set and they plugged into mine and I could hear it against another amp, these things hold their own, man. 80 watts of just really great cleans. The vintage channel is where I live on the clean with my pedals. The vintage lead channel's not too bad as well. I don't use it unless I have no choice and I don't have my pedals with me. But it's got a presence control. The reverb is spring reverb, real spring reverb. Sounds beautiful. And what can I say? You can get anything from clean to blues to rock and roll to metal out of these amps. So if you're looking for a one-trick pony, well, not a one-trick pony, an amp that does many different tricks, this would be where you would want to start, and you could go from there. So yeah, if you're not sure what kind of music you're playing, a PV Bandit's great because it can do it all. I've seen country guys use these, from Chet Atkins. I've even seen Clapton use Bandits. I've seen Chris Kane, the blues guy, the god of blues guitar, using these things. I've seen them get used in a lot of different incarnations too, like the old blue stripe ones from the from the 80s and all that kind of stuff. You see these around everywhere, the PV Bandits. There's a reason for it. I think they're one of the best amps PV makes. So yeah, it's a really cool amp, and I'm going to keep this as my jam amp / leave it in the back of the car amp. And I don't have to stress about it. It's one of those, if anything goes wrong with it, who cares? Like, it's not one of these two nicer amps that I've got over here. So yeah, anyway, it's a cool amp. I really dig it. And lastly, I have this. This is a Move All Crunchbox amplifier head. Move All are out of business now. It's a bit of a shame. This particular head is really cool. 5 watts, can power any 4 or 8 ohm speaker cabs. And I used to use this a lot on my demos when I was using the Randall Isolation recording cabinet. Kind of glad I'm not using that anymore for my demos. They sound so much better now. And yeah, it's basically a clean and dirty channel, 3-band EQ, master volume, the effects loop at the back, and it sounds great. Being that it's based on the Marshall drive tone, there's 3 valves in there, and it's got the EL34. So it's a totally rockin' little amplifier head. I don't use this much at all, if at all, anymore. I may use it on some recordings from time to time if the situation calls for it, but yeah, right now, this was in my cupboard. I was actually looking for something else and I found this. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I had this thing. So I may put this up on my web shop and basically sell it pretty soon. So it's not something that I'll be using a lot. I can't envision myself using this. But that said, it sounds cool. I'm not much of a Marshall fan, obviously. If you've ever watched my videos, I don't badmouth Marshalls. I think they sound good. I just have never owned any. So yeah, there we go. That's the little Move All amp head right there. So that's it in terms of amps. I've got 3 real amps and 1 practice / toy amp, being the Crunchbox. So yeah, that's it. If you're wondering where the Mustang is, basically what happened, I've explained this a couple times before. A lot of my friends ended up with a Mustang after I bought one. So we'd go to a jam night and there'd be 5 Fender Mustangs sitting there on the ground. So I kind of like to have things that are a little different to everyone else. That's why I went back to this. But since I got one of these, they've started to multiply as well. So it's one of those things, I guess, the sphere of influence goes a little further than I'd like sometimes. But yeah, it's all good. It's all good. All right, over to my pedals now. And as you know from watching my YouTube channel, if you're already a subscriber, my channel revolves mostly around pedal demos. I get lots of great stuff sent to me that I can then keep to use or whatever I like to do with it. So sometimes my pedal board does change, but the core of it is fairly similar on the most part. I'm going to show you what I use live currently and what I might use when I swap something out. Alright, let's start on this side. This is the Boss Chromatic Tuner, the TU2. I've had this for several years now, maybe 5 years, maybe longer, I can't really remember. And yeah, it mutes my signal, it's easy to see. I only ever use standard tuning, so it's just a great tuner for me to have on my board. It's reliable, all the good stuff. And I don't really need anything more fancy than this. For me, this is as good as it gets. Next, we've got the Klon KTR Overdrive pedal. I'll either use this on its own, or I'll stack it into the Maxon Overdrive Pro, the OD820. The OD820 is my favorite tube screamer that I've ever heard. It sounds really, really good. Can't complain with the tones of this thing. And together they work extremely well, which is the key, because sometimes you can have one or two really great pedals, but when you use them together, they don't sound great together. So I really like this setup. I think they work really well together, so they're staying on the board. Both of these pedals take 9 volts and sort of multiplied into 18 volts, so you get the really high headroom pedals. They've got lots of oomph, so yeah, definitely check these guys out. The Anarchy Audio Flutterby is the tremolo pedal of choice at the moment. It sounds great, it's easy to use, it's got 3 different voices. I have it either set, I think, to the middle or to the left. It might have just been knocked to the left, I can't really remember. I know when I'm using it which one I like, but I think it's to the left actually. It's an extremely great sounding trem. To me it sounds better than the Super-Reverb tremolo for what I like. It's more of that voxy, I can get more of that voxy type trem out of it. It goes fast or slow, it sounds beautiful. One thing I hate about a lot of tremolo pedals, if that's your volume, they do this. The sweep goes to the volume and lower. The Anarchy Audio one can actually go over and under, which makes it sound a lot more pleasing and a lot more legit. And lastly, we have the Maxon AD10 analog delay pedal. This is extremely subtle, but I love having it on. I'll leave it on the entire gig, on the most part, unless I'm playing some staccato kind of rhythm stuff. I like to leave that on the entire time. So if I was to mix out a few of these, what I would use is this guy here. This is the Shelly Pony Boy. It's basically a Klon. I've actually got this on my other board right now. Well, it's not technically on there right now, but my second smaller board, it's on there. The Maxon OD808. This is a bog standard tube screamer style pedal, and it's awesome. This one does sound a little rounder and richer sounding than this one, but this is great because it stacks extremely well as well. That's what I love about it. They just tend to work really well together. The delay pedal I'll use from time to time, I actually had this out at the gig recently, was the digital delay DD7. It's got an analog setting on there. I really like the digital settings as well. So last gig I actually had that on my board. The gig before that, I had the tremolo pedal off and I had the Shaky Jimmy on there as well. So I tend to mix and match between these, and I'm using the Covenant cables on all of my pedals, or between all of my pedals right now, because they're really, really good. The last pedal I need to mention is this, the Crybaby. This is the GCB 95F pedal, and I've had this for years, and it sounds good. It's been super reliable, and I'm yet to find a wah pedal I like more than it. So that usually just sits off on the left, and I run my signal chain through this way. There are some other pedals that I will use instead of the Klon. Sometimes I'll use the Maxon volume boost pedal here. Sometimes I'll use the SpeeSound Overzoid pedal. Just depends on my mood. So like I said, I have a second board that I set up that's smaller than this, but basically I could run another second board with what I've got in my hand here and another tuner, and it would be my A-Rig as well. This stuff sounds great. And I'm not a brand snob. I think, you know, Moen's not the most expensive brand out there, but I love the vibe tone on there. It just sounds good, and that's what it's all about. It's quiet, does the job. But sometimes I just get a bit sick of this, so I tend to mix it up between the vibe pedal here and the real, you know, the tremolo pedal here, the real trem pedal. So yeah, the Flutterby. They're all good. So that's pretty much what I'm using right now. So I just tend to mix it up between what you've seen right now, depending on my mood. That's what happens. Sometimes I get a little bored with the Klon and the overdrive pedal, so I'll go to the cupboard, I'll grab the Maxon red overdrive pedal out there, the 808X I think it is, and I'll just mix things up a little bit and see how we go for a gig. I generally end up going back to a tube screamer of some description though, because for me that's the sound I really like. Over the last couple of years, I must have been asked 1,000 times which power supplies I use and do I get any problems with hum and loop and all this kind of stuff. I've never experienced that. I've never had any buzz from my power supplies either. The one that I've had for a number of years, even at the last gear rundown I did, was the Visual Sound One Spot. I think they're called True Tone now. I don't know why they changed their names, but anyway. Yeah, so these One Spots are still available out there, and this is the same one I've always had. It is 1700 milliamp maximum, so this can power a whole lot of pedals, no problems at all. This is my main power supply now that I use on all my demos, and sometimes when I play live as well, depending on which power board I use. This has 8 different outputs, and it's also loaded with an 18 volt 300 milliamp output, a 12 volt 300 milliamp output, 2 300 milliamp 9 volt outputs, and 6 100 milliamp 9 volt outputs. It's a mouthful to say, but basically this covers all bases. I can use this with 18 volt pedals and you get that bigger sound. So yeah, it's an absolute beast. These are isolated as well. There's photos on my website about the internals of this as well. And they're built well, they don't make any noise. I think these are a great product. So yeah, between these two, that's all I use. Thanks for watching. My name's Shane. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions about the video or anything within it, any of the gear, whatever, let me know and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Don't forget, you can head over to my forum at intheblues.net as well. There's some good discussions going on over there, and the forum's faster than ever now since I moved it to the new host, so definitely check that out. Due to the amount of pedals I've got in my cupboard, it's a little disturbing. I do like to revolve things around in my pedal board, but I think the core of what I'm using, or what you've seen right now, is basically it for me, and it's been that way for a good couple of years. So I can't really remember what I had on my last rig rundown, or gear rundown I should say, because copyright, but I'll have to check that out and see if it's changed much at all. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget, leave all your comments below, all your questions as well, and I'll endeavor to reply as soon as I can. Thanks again, catch you all soon. See ya. Wow, even more videos. Check them out. Don't forget to subscribe if you do like the video you just watched, and if you don't, all good. Check out one of these 4, you might enjoy it more.